Okay, so we have a question here from Richard. If you hosted a dinner party for other tennis players, past or present, who would you invite and what would you ask them? So it's a difficult one because it's not really something I do, but as close as I can get to that, probably be an experience that I had at Laver Cup in Chicago, which was like the first time I would have said I've mixed with like the other players before. So on Team Europe we had Roger, Novak, Grigor, David Goffin, Jeremy Chardy, myself, and the captains were obviously Bjorn Borg and Thomas Enquist. So that would be as close to say as a dinner party I'd get. We went out for some meals sometimes, and I've never been able to socialise with the players like that before, so it's very interesting. I could probably tell you one story. I happened to be sitting next to Roger at one of the dinners. We just got chatting just about different things, and not necessarily tennis, but one of them was actually we were discussing what sort of temperature or how we cook our steaks or meat, and mine would be medium, but he said he's always been a person that's had it well done, which is some people would disagree with, but that was it was quite interesting. But to be honest with you, just sitting around that table was pretty cool, and obviously having a legend like Bjorn Borg there was also a pretty cool dinner party. This one's from Ian Hooper. If you could play any player in history at their peak, who would you choose? So I'd say I've actually played a lot of players right now that would have a strong case to be some of the best players in history and at their peak. I played Roger once last year in Indian Wells, but I played Rafa on clay probably 3 years ago. I've played Novak quite a lot of times. He's the guy I've played the most, to be honest, since 3 or 4 years ago, and even recently I played him on all surfaces, so I really have a good experience of that. And obviously his record, the slams he's won, weeks at #1, prove that he's consistently been very high. So I've experienced that, and obviously playing Andy as well, on grass, on hard courts, 3 or 4 years ago as well. So I've played, I think, very good players, or some of the best players at their peak in the world. But one thing that probably interests me is to play the guys, maybe a different generation, just because the game was different. And I'm talking maybe like Borg, McEnroe. So someone playing like McEnroe, whose the game style is so different anyway, playing his serve and the way he hits the ball. But I think if I could play them with the style of rackets they had and the balls, which is so different to now, and the surface, the speed of surfaces, I think that'd be very different to how it plays now. So it's more the experience. But I think to play McEnroe with the wooden rackets, and to see how tough it was to play in that era, and how good they were with their touch and their volleys and their serves, I think that would be very interesting for me. Just because after that, the rackets have developed, but they would be sort of similar-ish to what we're playing with now. But Borg and McEnroe, it was so different back in the day. Looking back, what advice would you give yourself as a junior player, under 12, under 14 player, from Bella Swanborough? It's a good question. I started very young when I was 10. Actually, not too young, but it was enough time to obviously get me going in the juniors. And 12 and 14, the biggest thing I tried to concentrate on, and what my coach had told me, is always to think long term when you try and develop your game, not to think short term with wins and losses. Sometimes trying to improve something within your game can take time, and if that is something that you're trying to improve that will work when you're older, and that's what you want to have in your game, it's important to remember that even when you're going through the losses, that it's not going to work straight away, but if you have belief that it's going to work when you get older, it's important to keep at it and keep persistent. So that's something I tried to focus on a lot. I didn't win straight away when I was younger. It took me a while to get that confidence, and once I got like almost a sniff for it, and got a few wins under my belt. That's where I felt I really kicked on, especially under 14s even. Under 12s, I definitely wasn't the best in the country. Wasn't winning internationally as much. So it's something as I got older, I kept improving. And I think that's because the way I play is quite is a way that the men would play, not necessarily how juniors would play at the beginning. So, and it's also important to remember physically. You don't have to be very strong as in have, big muscles or anything, but it's important to keep developing physically with the movement on court, making sure that everything's in place. So it's just about thinking long term is the main thing, and actually believing in your game and knowing that it's important to win when you get to under 18s, 20 plus rather than 12s and 14s. This one is from Jeffrey Daniels. When you were a teenager, was there a particular shot you tried to make a weapon? Obviously my game is very powerful, and no secret that I like to hit my forehand, and it is my weapon. So my serve and my forehand is two big shots for me. Try and use them like the 1-2 punch. But for sure, when I was younger, it's just a shot that I always enjoyed playing. I still do. It was something I worked on as a strength, but also worked on my weaknesses. They were both. So forehand was just something when I was a kid, I always liked to hit the ball hard. And I think that's where I get my power from. And I think the forehand just something that came natural to me. I was able to generate a lot of spin and a lot of power without forcing it, and with a lot of control. So that was definitely something I aimed for. And I wouldn't say my backhand is a bad shot, but it's just my forehand is such a weapon that I try to use that. And it's hard to really know why it is a good shot. I think it's just something that does come natural, and it's not something I think about a lot. And I think that's why it's a good shot, is it just because it just comes naturally to me. So when I'm playing with my forehand and it's going well, I'm definitely winning a lot of points and matches. What made you start playing with the Pro Stuff racket from Michael Arch? To be honest, I've just played with it all my life, to be honest. When I was younger, it was more of a lighter version, but as I've got older, I went up to the heavy racket, and then after that even started to add a little weight, not a lot, but a little bit. And it's a racket I've always found comfortable playing. And I think because I started young, there's something to say in it that your game almost molds around the racket as well. Sometimes if a racket is stiff or more flexy, or also the string pattern, it can change the way you play. But because I've always played with a very similar racket, the same string bed as well, I've just found it very comfortable, and I trust it completely now. So I have tried other rackets within the Wilson range, like the Blade. Recently tried the Clash as well, just for experiment. But each time I've always made the same decision, and that's to always stick with the Pro Stuff. And in some way, it's sort of reiterated why I like the racket. So it was good for me to try. But the biggest thing is I just feel I can get enough power. Power's never a problem for me, but also get the same control all the time. You change the tensions a little bit depending on the weather and the surfaces, but it's more just having the trust in the racket. And I think as I get older, the more and more I just have complete control in it, and no need to sort of change, to be honest. So that's why I've always been a Pro Stuff fan. I've always played with it, and they're also very good looking rackets. Right now, the new Pro Stuff colours, I think, is like old school, but also very simple, and I like that. So my favourite question would be from Bella, even though it's quite a simple one, and I get asked it a few times. It's a very important one. It's not easy to answer because there's so many different things, but I think when you're young, it's important to try and get as much advice as you can from the guys that have done it and experienced it. So along with playing the game and trying to improve, it's also important to have fun, and that's for sure I would have liked to have done more of. But as I'm getting older, I realise how lucky I am to be doing what I am and enjoying it as much as possible. So I hope that helps.